Hello and welcome back to MPL Weekly. I'm Becca Scott, Marshall Sutcliffe over there, and Ben Stark now in the expert seat.
Hey.
Hi. Very chill introduction. Very chill
Ben comes in hot, you know, it's like, hey.
Ready to go? Hey, what's up? Let's play some magic.
Some magic, man. Yeah.
Let's go.
So, how's the MPL?
The MPL's great. I mean, it's awesome being a part of it.
Yeah, so we're going to see you in future weeks. But we have you here today. I'm very excited. It's been great to meet you.
Yeah, nice to meet you too. I mean, I'm excited to be here covering, this first week of the new MPL split.
Yeah, are you stoked for it? Do you like this structure?
I like this structure a lot better.
Yeah.
Playing one match a week, it felt like you had to do all this work and preparation just to play one match. Now it feels like you have a week-long tournament, basically. You prepare hard for that, you build a good deck, and then you play it for 7 matches. That's way more like a Magic tournament.
Sure, you played for 7 matches, but then the playoff bracket, which is very exciting for all of us, is that more pressure on you?
Yeah, but that's what makes it fun.
Yeah.
Like when you're playing for something, when there's a lot on the line, like, starting in the top 16 of a Mythic Championship, which is incredible, that's like a huge prize to win. That makes it more fun, not less fun, in my opinion.
Absolutely. All right, well, we do have the bracket to explain to you just exactly what a lower semifinal is. So tell us about this bracket, Marshall.
Yeah, so as you can see, Carlos Ramao has advanced to the grand finals. So he will be sitting there waiting and will have to be defeated twice if he's going to lose. So that win over Marcio in that opening round was huge for him. He has a large mathematical advantage over anybody else now. And for Marcio Carvalho, he drops down to the lower finals bracket where he is going to await the winner of the match that we're just about to watch, which is Andrew Cuneo versus Autumn Burchett.
And he's got his work cut out for him because, I think both the red decks are at least a small favorite against vampires.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's huge, right? I mean, you look at that win by Carlos there, and he gets to dodge this bullet of facing one of 2 decks that is at least somewhat geared to beat it, and he gets to secure his spot in the grand finals with no losses. So that was a huge, huge win. Marcio is now in the lion's den. Right now he has to await the winner of this, then scrap it out with them. He has to win, then if he does, he'll make it back to the grand finals, and then he has to beat Carlos twice.
It's not going to be easy.
Really, really tough to do.
Yes, so we have these 2 other players that we're going to see in the top 4, and we have a nice little piece prepared to show you how they got to this bracket of play. So let's jump right in and hear about Andrew Kunio.
Opening the deciding game against Marcio Carvalho in his first match, Cuneo had a critical turn 2 Thought Erasure, taking away Sorin Imperious Bloodlord, and that's not the last time we'll mention that line of play. Narset, Padre of Veils soon followed, and Cuneo had a hand stacked with removal, Enter the God Eternals taking out Sanctum Seeker. With Noxious Grass for Gideon Blackblade, it wasn't long before Carvalho was dispatched via another very tasty Enter the God Eternals. After a straightforward loss to Carlos Ramao, finished by a Sorin sacrifice, Cuneo faced Grzegorz Kowalski, the lone banned Scapeshift player in the division. Having failed with Unmoored Ego not once but twice in Game 2, Cuneo finally landed it in Game 3, taking away Field of the Dead. Search for Azcanta started the mid-game Engine of Doom, and Unmoored Ego unmoored Kowalski's Hydroid Crasis. Cuneo 2-1. A comfortable win over Autumn Burchett followed, before Christian Hauck brought the Vampire beats in a big way to peg Cuneo back to a 3-2 record. Next up was Brad Nelson, so let's talk about Thought Erasure. Here in Game 1, a timely Thought Erasure took Sorin Imperious Bloodlord, and Cuneo took the game comfortably. In Game 2, there was no Thought Erasure, so Nelson got his turn 3 Sorin and dominated. In the decider, with Cuneo hamstrung with only black mana, Nelson had duress to steal Cuneo's Thought Erasure, meaning once again turn 3 Sorin and once again game, and this time match to Nelson. That set up a must-win for Cuneo against Mythic Invitational finalist Piotr Glogowski. Game 1 was a complete non-event, with Glogowski stuck on just 2 lands, and things weren't much better for Glogowski in Game 2, Cuneo having ample time to find Cry of the Carnarium. Glogowski was able to rebuild thanks to multiple Knights of the Ebon Legion, but multiple Knights die to Legion's End in a win for Cuneo and Flavor fans everywhere. Search for Azcanta looked a likely long-term death knell for Glogowski. A second Cuneo Cry of the Carnarium tidied up the board for a 3rd time before, with pleasing symmetry, Cuneo fired off Thought Erasure back-to-back to rob Glogowski of his 2 Champion of Dusk, and that was enough. With a hard-fought 4-3 record, Cuneo was through to the top 4 bracket playoffs.
Going into this week, I thought that Vampires would be the most popular deck for sure. I thought it was very likely that Marcio and Christian would pick it, and I thought a bunch of the other competitors it would be a likely choice for them. Honestly, up until 6 hours before deck lists were due, I was going to just play Vampires too. I think it's pretty clearly the best deck in Standard. So my match against Autumn, I would expect Autumn is not going to bring a Vampire deck, but Autumn could play a pretty wide variety of decks. So I don't have a real specific expectation with Autumn. And I think I played Autumn a handful of times in bigger tournaments. And I think we've got a roughly even record. They beat me at Mythic Championship 3. At that one, they brought a Nexus deck, which is a really tough matchup for my deck. So hopefully I can turn things around.
All right, there's Andrew talking about the deck he chose to bring.
I was just looking at his guitar collection.
Yeah.
I've heard he's actually really good.
Oh, he's amazing. Have you ever seen him play?
No, but I've heard he's really good.
He'll put a,
Did he tell you that?
We're,
He
no,
didn't,
we're not
actually.
kidding.
Yeah.
If you ever get a chance to see him play, he is incredible.
All right, Andrew, bring it to the next Mythic Championship. Bring a guitar.
For real, Andrew, we want to see you play guitar. We want to hear it in person. Bring it.
Every time he wins a big tournament, he's like, I've had my eye on this guitar for a while.
Oh, now buying up more Magic cards, as most players
He's got
do.
plenty of those, yeah.
All right, well, we do have a piece about Autumn Burchett, so let's go to that.
Hi friends, Megan here. It was a good week to be undead, at least for some members of the Pearl Division. One such player was Autumn Burchett, who, like many other pros in the division, brought vampires to this week's matches. It tested their prowess in the mirror and my ability to spell the word lieutenant. Burchett started off with back-to-back wins, putting them on stellar footing in the division. First, they defeated Carlos Romao, also on vampires. Despite repping the undead on their own side of the battlefield, Burchett probably staked more vamps than the legendary Van Helsing as they fought their way through this week's matches. Burchett next cut a path through Gregor Kowalski on Bant Scapeshift. In Game 2, Kowalski successfully scapeshifted into a horde of zombies, then had the audacity to have a Veil of Summer to protect them all from Legion's End. I thought they already met their Legion's End. Anyway, Burchett cleaned up the match in a swift Game 3. In their third match, Burchett hit a stumbling block. Opponent Pyotr Yorgo Glogovsky was also on vampires. An early copy of Champion of Dusk in Game 1 and a copy of Arguel's Bloodfast in Game 2 kept him flush with cards, while Burchett had enough lands in play to make that Scapeshift deck pretty jealous. Glogovsky took the match, handing Burchett their first loss. Next up was Andrew Cuneo, who, true to form, brought a control deck, in this case blue-black. In Game 1, Burchett's quick start came to a screeching halt when Cuneo played back-to-back houses Enter the God Eternals and Liliana Dreadhorde General, which took over the game. In Game 2, Burchett got an early look at Cuneo's hand with a duress, and the sight was, frankly, frightful. Liliana, this time accompanied by Kefnet, spelled the end for Burchett. Burchett now stood at 2-2 and needed to win at least 2 of their last 3 matches to secure a spot in the top 4. They dispatched standard juggernaut Brad Nelson's army of vamps back to the graves from whence they came, coming back from a 31-3 difference in life totals and keeping a chance at a spot in the top 4 alive. Then came Burchett's match against Marcio Carvalho, where, in games 1 and 3, Burchett could never quite get enough momentum to stop Carvalho's tide of attackers. Carvalho flooded the board, then restocked his hand with Champion of Dusk, while Burchett, choked on mana, struggled to keep up. Carvalho took the match, and Burchett was left with a final chance to secure a spot in the top 4 by defeating Christian Hawk. Despite having enough Legion's lieutenants to make an army, Burchett lost Game 1 and needed back-to-back wins. They secured them, leveraging the power of Sanctum Seeker in a Game 3 that they won by razor-thin margins. My record this week versus the word lieutenant was a disappointing 0-2, but Burchett had a triumphant last match and an overall record of 4-3, securing them the final spot in this week's top 4.
So this week went pretty well for me. I settled on the Vampires deck. I thought it was just the best deck when people were really targeting Scapeshift, especially because the deck beats up on Scapeshift. I ended up playing a lot of mirror matches, which was kind of intense because I'm not really much of an aggro player. but I'm really happy with how they went overall. So in the last split, I tried to start moving out of my comfort zone a bit by playing some mono red. So I have been trying to move into aggro decks a bit more and get a bit more proficient with them. But moving into vampires for 7 whole matches was definitely a big leap for me when, you know, I'm really still just trying to get a handle on these types of decks. And it was exciting. I've really enjoyed trying to understand, you know, how to race properly with the decks, how to balance being aggressive versus, you know, managing your attrition-y elements. It was a lot of fun. Being against Cuneo first is really exciting because he's definitely the person who's most likely to bring a kind of unpredictable deck. You know, never know exactly what he's going to be bringing in to an event, and it makes it pretty nerve-wracking from my side. I need to make sure whatever I'm bringing isn't too exploitable, ideally, or isn't too predictable by him. But I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to our rematch.
All right, you heard it. Autumn's ready for a rematch. Play Kunio again. You have a few words that they exchanged, don't you, Marshall?
Yeah, it's kind of funny. Before their match, Autumn said, I see we both took a change of pace because, you know, Vampires was kind of leading the charge for the Swiss portion. But both of them decided, as we're going to take a look at their decks in a minute, not to play Vampires. And Andrew said, yeah, I went for a different twist on Vampires this time. I see you did as well. So even though they stayed with the aggressive tact, they did not go with Vampires. So.
Yeah, let's see who has brought the deck that can pair with both the decks trying to go around Vampires. So this is Andrew Cunio's Boros Feather.
This deck is sweet. Ben, I played this one a few times this week just to get a feel for it. Wow, for a red-white aggressive deck, it has a lot of mid-range punch.
Yeah, I love this deck. It's got a good Vampires matchup because you've got Shocks and Reckless Rages, Knight of Grace. It's also an aggro deck. You pressure the opponents. The only thing that would really punish this, we're not really seeing maybe like control decks with good spot removal and things like that, but you can't play that in a world that revolves around Vampires.
That's right. By the way, yeah, Knight of Grace ×4, clearly aimed. And here's the sideboard now for Andrew. Let's see. Now, we happen to know that Andrew's going to be playing against mono red. Anything stand out there for mono red?
Not really. I mean, Devout Decree is good removal, but you're paying 2 mana to kill one of Mono Red's creatures, and Mono Red's creatures are cheap. Gideon, if you can get ahead and start gaining life, you're probably going to win, but if they can attack it out, it can be a really bad card.
Okay.
I don't think Andrew's board is really built with Mono Red in mind. It looks like, you know, he knows that his deck isn't quite as fast as Vampires or doesn't have the capability to burn someone out like Mono Red does, so he went with the Alpine Moons in case he plays against Scapeshift. His sideboard is definitely thinking about Vampires, just like his main deck. Devout Decree is excellent against Vampires, but I don't think his sideboard is really that well equipped for mono red.
Okay.
Let's see what Autumn has brought with the mono red deck and how it's changed from the last Mythic Championship.
Yeah, not a ton. You do see a few things, though. You see Chandra, Acolyte of Flame. You see Ember Haulers in there. But, you know, this is a pretty streamlined version of mono red, Ben.
Yeah, and I love the changes. I played a lot of mono red last season, and I never really liked having too many 4-drops in your 20-land deck. But Chandra being a 3-drop, it's a lot more affordable. If you draw Chandra and Frenzy in 3 lands, which happens a lot, you have something to do. It also gives the deck some staying power. You can flashback Light Up the Stage to dig for land 4 for Frenzy. I think it's all around a good inclusion in the deck and a really strong card. Ember Hauler, I don't think it's that strong a card. It's more like a placeholder. I don't know if it's the best available card for that slot or not, but when you're playing a 1-color deck, you're working with limited options.
Okay.
Let's see the sideboard.
And once again, same question, Ben. When we look at the sideboard here, knowing that Autumn is going to be up against Feather, what stands out?
Well, those fries are big and the lava coils.
Oh, yeah.
Autumn's sideboard happens to be very well equipped against Feather. The biggest card in that matchup is Feather itself. 4 toughness can be hard for mono red to remove, and if you untap with it, you pretty much win. And Autumn's packing a lot of heat. 4 lava coil, 3 fry. That's pretty much what I'd expect them to bring in against Feather, and having 7 ways to remove the card is huge.
Yeah, that could actually influence the way that Cuneo actually plays out his his games as well. Sometimes you'll see the players, wait to play Feather if they can at all to try to protect it with God's Will.
Right, and when you're a mono red player, you're trying to pressure them so that they don't have the option to wait. And then if you can remove it, if they can't wait and they have to play it and you can remove it, you're going to win.
Yeah.
Now, Feather allows you to put God's Willing back in your hand over and over. What's the answer to that?
Nope.
The answer to that is it requires 4 mana, and if you're not doing anything against mono red before that, you're probably dying.
Okay.
If you have a good mono red draw, you're trying to pressure the Feather player and not let them do what they want when they want.
So you're basically ignoring that and
Not gonna
trying
talk
to
about
kill
it.
them rather than focusing on trying to break up that combo.
Kill them fast, what
Yeah,
Mono Red
that's
does.
what you got to do.
Well, let's see what happens in this matchup with Autumn Burchett and Andrew Cuneo.
All right, Ben, let's get underway here in our lower bracket. We've got Andrew Cuneo on the top part of your screen, Autumn Burchett on the bottom. And Autumn is taking a look at an opening hand that looks a little landlight.
Yeah, but 2 1-mana cards, I think that's a close hand. I'd probably mulligan because it also has a 3 and a 4. But you definitely could keep on the draw with like 2 to 3 1-mana cards. I agree with the decision to mulligan, though.
Okay, and that is what happened here. Now, is this one a key?
You got to keep this on 6. You've got light up the stage, so if you can connect with one of those lava runners, then you can play that and dig for lands. You're not happy about this, seeing this hand after a mulligan, another 1-lander. You're not happy if you're Autumn, but you can't mull this.
Gonna have to see some lands here for Autumn Burchett. On the top part of your screen, take a look at what Andrew's working with. It looks like he mulliganed as well.
Yeah, Andrew has a good hand, though. 2 2-drops and a God's Willing is almost perfect because you can put out 1 2-drop, and then if it dies to removal, you now have 2-drop with God's Willing to protect it.
So let's see if Autumn can find a land. No, thus far. That's a shock. Though Light Up the Stage can certainly get the job done, though Knight of Grace is going to do a good job stopping that, and no land off the top of the library.
This was really key because if Autumn drew a land this turn, it would be shock Knight of Grace, attack, play Light Up the Stage for 1 mana, and then you have 2 more cards to find more lands. Now Autumn's going to miss their land drop, just attack for 1 and pass back to Andrew and fall pretty far behind here.
So let's see if Andrew can take advantage of this situation. There's 10th District Legionnaire off the top of the library, but he's also got options on Dreadhorde Arcanist as well.
Yeah, I would be surprised if he plays 10th District here. You want to get your Arcanist going. You have the ability to protect it. Andrew should just put out Dreadhorde Arcanist and then pass the turn with God's Willing up, I think.
Then try to get the shenanigans going with a Gird for battle or something along those lines. Okay, let's see if there's a land here for Autumn. Oh, it's another Gitu Lava Runner off the top of the library. That is not it.
Yeah, I mean, this is practically game over here already. Look, it's an unfortunate game. Autumn couldn't find lands. They mulliganed a 1-lander into a 1-lander. It's not the best game. It's not the best part of Magic, but it happens.
Well, let's see how it plays out here, because Kunio does have 20 damage to deal here over the course of the next few turns. Let's see how that actually plays out.
And that was an important block by Andrew, because if Andrew would have took that 1 to protect the Arcanist, Autumn would have been able to cast Light Up the Stage. A lot of people might have been inclined to just let that through because Arcanist is so powerful, but with your opponent stuck on 1 lands, you do not want to let them cast Light Up the Stage and dig for more mana. So that was a really nice block by Andrew.
Smart stuff there from Cuneo. He's got that 10th District Legionnaire on the battlefield now.
Yeah, now we're just going to see Gird for battle, I think, like attack Gird, like this game is over.
He's actually going to go for Reckless Rage just to keep the other side down.
Sure.
Similar effect, though. He can just wipe the board.
Yeah, this is a better play. I didn't actually see that he drew Reckless Rage because that's the new card he drew this turn. But this way you remove both Lava Runners, which means that Autumn can't cast Light Up the Stage.
Right.
And like I said, from Andrew's perspective, your #1 goal is to keep your opponent off Light Up the Stage, because if Autumn doesn't start making land drops, the game is over.
Fanatical Firebrand off the top of the library for Autumn. Though it looks like they're just going to go for Gitu Lava Runner. So far, really the only card here that we've seen outside of that shock. So there's Gird for battle, plus the trigger from 10th District Legionnaire, plus the, I'm going to call it flashback from the Dreadhorde Arcanist, means that the damage is now just completely out of control in Cuneo's favor.
Right. At this point, you're no longer worried about taking that hit for Lava Runner. You're too far ahead. Mono Red cannot come back against a 3/5 and a 7/7.
Right.
Like I said, I mean, Magic's the best game, but sometimes this happens, and this game is over.
Yeah. The mono red deck, of course, doesn't need a whole lot of lands to operate, but 1 is just not enough. Even though Autumn has been able to cast 1 spell per turn, it's just not going to be enough when Cuneo's been able to, relatively speaking, empty out his hand. And there's that Light Up the Stage finally, but again, too little, too late here for Autumn Burchett in game number 1 against Andrew Cuneo.
Yeah, I mean, Autumn's just dead. Andrew
Right.
can just, God's willing, the 7-7 or shock the Firebrand because he just drew shock. But either way.
That's right. So game number 1 in decisive fashion goes to Andrew Cuneo with Boros Feather. And now we're going to start taking a look at the sideboards here. So let's see. We are looking at Autumn.
Yeah, I mean, they should bring in all of that removal that can hit Feather, the Lava Coils and the Fries, which you can see they immediately did. Take out some of the slower cards. You're going to be on the draw this game. Chandra would be definitely my first cut. After that, you could consider taking out like Ember Hauler or Lava Runner, things that are basically not removal and or super efficient. If you're mono red here on the draw, you're trying to play the control role when you're on the draw against Feather. You're trying to remove their threats and then win with Frenzy.
Yeah, it looks like a few Skewer the Critics came out, as well as those Chandras and the Lava Runners, and we are all staged up here for game number 2. Autumn has to hope that this one goes better because game 1 was a disaster. Is this any better, Ben?
Yeah, this is better. I mean, if you connect on turn 2, then you can light up the stage for lands. This is a really close hand. I don't know what they're going to do. Honestly, I wouldn't fault a player for mulliganing or keeping this. My inclination would probably be to keep, but I tend to be one on the loose keep side. And the London Mulligan offers a lot more than the Vancouver Mulligan in terms of your chances to win with 6. So maybe this is a hand that was right to keep before, but became right to mulligan now. I don't know.
But it's that close.
It's that close. My inclination would be to keep, but I think it's super close.
Well, Autumn agreed, and they kept past taking a look now at Cuneo, who looks like, yes, also going to 6 again. Defiant Strike, Knight of Grace, Shock, 10th District Legionnaire, and 3 lands. So the Defiant Strike's going to go away.
And this was an interesting choice for Andrew between Plains and Defiant Strike. He wasn't thinking about bottoming any of the other cards, but whether you bottom the additional land 3, when you're on, or whether you bottom the Defiant Strike when you're on the draw, that's a close decision.
All right, with no end in sight here, though, for the Fanatical Firebrand, it's going to get into the red zone once again and unlock the power of Light Up the Stage. And let's see if we can find some lands, and we do! 2 mountains off the top for Autumn.
Yeah, and this is now looking pretty promising for Autumn. They have a really strong hand. It was just missing lands, so when you find the 2 lands right away, now you got a great hand.
Right, now we get to shock this Knight of Grace out of the way.
That's the thing about keeping these one-landers. You see all the times that you get punished and they don't get there, but when they do get there, you have a perfect hand.
It's perfect. Look at this curve out now. Goblin Chain Whirler's going to hit the battlefield here and knock Cuneo down to 17, plus an attack from the Firebrand is going to be down to 16 with 4 power on the battlefield versus nothing. And 2 removal spells plus a pseudo removal spell in hand means that it could be very difficult for Cuneo to actually keep a threat on the battlefield.
Yeah, Cuneo's got a couple options here. He could play 10th District Guard and then Reckless Rage away the Chain Whirler and grow his District Guard. He could also Devout Decree the Chain Whirler and shock the Firebrand. I think he's going to grow the District Guard because it gets you a Scry, which can help you find Feather or one of your other key cards. But it really is a close choice because you know Autumn's holding a handful of spells. You don't know what, but probably removal for this 10th District Guard.
Right, so it's tempting for Andrew to say, well, the coast is clear right now.
Because
I know I can get this play off.
Because this is the only threat Andrew has. So if Autumn removes this 10th District Guard, Andrew can end up not being able to do very much this game.
I see. So he does take that line, leaving him with a 3-3 and Autumn with just the 1-1 Fanatical Firebrand, but one of those Lava Coils is going to take care of that little problem. And then Autumn is actually going to value getting the Ember Hauler on the battlefield over the Light Up the Stage, which will have to wait till next turn.
And that's because Autumn has 4 lands, so they're not worried about it. This isn't like when you're stuck on 1. Autumn will cast Light Up the Stage at some point, whether it's for 1 mana or 3, and they're not really concerned either way.
Interesting here as well, we see aggressive use of removal here from Cuneo, but also factoring in what you mentioned before, which are those scries. Those really add up, and we could see Feather or something on top of the library.
Yeah, Autumn actually has an interesting decision now, whether to Lava Coil or Lightning Strike the Arcanist. You're 100% killing it, attacking for 1, and then playing Light Up the Stage, but you kind of want to hold on to Lava Coil for potential Feather, but Lightning Strike's an instant and can go to the player. So this is actually a really close, interesting decision.
How big of is it a factor that Cuneo bottomed his card there?
Small factor because, I mean, if they topped it, then you would know he's probably drawing Feather or something good. I think I like striking it, though, because Autumn's in a pretty comfortable position. Andrew's down to 1 card, and you just don't want them to on-tap play Feather, on-tap with it, and potentially win a game where you're pretty far ahead.
That's right. So let's see what Andrew finds. Well, it's a pair of shocks, so he can deal with the board as it sits, and Autumn just has Chain Whirler left for threats plus draw step next turn. So we are kind of at ground zero here, but another light up the stage for Autumn is going to be beautiful here. Chain Whirler to do that 1 damage without even having to attack, and here comes light up the stage to fuel the fire going forward, and it's another Firebrand, which is going to hit the battlefield right now.
Yeah, and attack. I think Autumn's in a really good position now. We're very likely to see a game 3.
Woo. And a land off the top of the library. Probably the death knell here for Cuneo. Taking 4 damage. Now, we're not quite finished, but with that lava coil in hand, even a card like Feather's not going to get the job done here for Cuneo.
No, Andrew needs to top deck removal for that Chain Whirler, and then go on to play a long game where Autumn floods out. That's the realistic win for Andrew
and that
from here.
is not what's happening here. Lightning Strike off the top of the library to join the lava coil already in hand. And is that lethal? Not quite.
But it's a good play using the lava coil now, and nice adjustment by Autumn, choosing to use the strike the first time because Andrew had a lot more life and cards in hand, and you wanted to have that lava coil available for Feather. Now that the opponent's at 4, if Andrew plays Feather this turn, I mean, he just dies to Lightning Strike plus Firebrand.
Right.
So now Autumn made the switch and realized it's closeout time. I'm going to keep the one that goes to the player. Whereas earlier in the game, they kept the one that's better at removing bigger threats.
Yep, super smart play. Changing gears there in the middle part of that game, and now securing game number 2 with Fanatical Firebrand going upstairs and knocking Cuneo to exactly 0. So we are going to get a game number 3 here, Ben. Boy, these games are fast and furious, but they're sweet.
Yeah, 2 aggro decks, but I mean, they're intricate. They both have a lot of cheap removal. It's good magic. It's almost limited.
Does kind of feel like limited, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Is that why we're so happy?
Yeah, that's why I'm loving it. 2 little creature decks, removal, combat tricks, like my cup of tea.
Love it, love it. All right, so we get to consult sideboards once again here for Autumn and Andrew, and that didn't take very long. A couple of small changes, and we are right back into it. And again, I will remind you that this is double elimination. So losing this match does not eliminate you, but obviously puts you in a pretty rough position. And we're underway here. Andrew is going to be on the play this time. And finally, Autumn gets to keep a hand of 7 cards.
And so does Andrew.
Nice.
They both mulligan both games,
Fair
right?
fight.
That's got to go.
Got to kill the Arcanist?
You have to. You have to kill Arcanist on site every time. If you pass, you have to assume Andrew's deck is full of 1-mana spells to play. He's just going to start generating massive value.
Which, by the way, it is.
Yeah. Arcanist is kill on site.
Yeah. You learn that very quickly when you play with or against this deck, because if you get to untap with it, you're like, sweet, I'm doing it. And if you don't, then that's it. So here we go, though. 10th District Legionnaire is going to pick up a counter, a scry, a card off the Defiant Strike, +1/+0 until end of turn, and crash for 4. Not too bad either, especially with Aurelia hovering around in hand there.
Yeah, Autumn now has a bit more of a choice. You want to get your Steam Kit in play before you play removal, but at the same time, 10th District Guard is pretty scary. I think if I were Autumn, I'd play the Runaway Steam Kit here, but it's a really hard decision. You could definitely fry the 10th District Guard. I don't think I'd play Ember Hauler. I just don't think that does enough. 2 isn't realistically killing anything important at this point in the game, but it's a really close decision between Runaway Steam Kit and Fry.
By the way, correction there, but this is an elimination match. We are in the lower semifinals, so these players do not get another chance. I misspoke there a minute ago. Apologies for that. So yeah, we are up against it here in game number 3. Win or go home.
Yeah, so one thing that's nice is by using the Fry, Andrew may be more tempted to play Aurelia, and Autumn has second Fry in hand. But at the same time, I think getting the Steamkin out has value, because if you don't draw lands, then you're never going to really get it in play, because you have to keep dealing with Andrew's threats. Now, Autumn did draw a land, which means Steamkin into Fry here, and Autumn's possibly able to flip this game now.
Yeah, this is starting to look much, much better than it did just a couple of turns ago for Autumn Burchett. They passed the turn back. Now, that's key there. Runaway Steamkin killed at the last possible moment, but 2 reactive cards in hand left for Andrew Cuneo, and he just has nothing going on. He needs to find one of his creatures, and quickly.
Yeah.
We haven't seen Feather from him. Lava Coil's not it, but he can use it at least to kill one of these Ember Haulers while the shields are down.
Yeah, if Andrew draws a Feather this turn or next turn, he's probably going to win because he's got the God's Willing and Reckless Rage. That means he can basically combo off. Reckless Rage the Feather in one of your creatures, the Rage goes back to my hand. If you try and kill it, I've got the God's Willing goes back to my hand. So this is basically now Autumn's in control, but if Andrew top decks Feather this turn or maybe next turn, then Andrew will be a massive favorite. So even though this game is looking bad for Andrew, it's not like the first 2 games where you can just go, this game's practically over. If Andrew top decks Feather here, he may be a favorite, but he has to top deck it now because he's playing against Mono Red.
He's got to see Feather right now off the top of the library, and it's another Plains. And that probably is going to do it. He's not dead on board, right? 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
10.
Oh, he is
Yeah,
dead on
he's just
board.
dead. He's just
I
dead on
counted
board.
to 10. And that's going to do it. Autumn Lily, Autumn Burchett, Shock Upstairs plus Ember Hauler is exactly enough to get the job done. Wow, impressive stuff and a quick one there. And you got to like Autumn Lily's positioning here.
Yeah, I think the red deck has a nice matchup against other creature decks. I think that's why Autumn chose it. Having to beat someone twice when you can only take 1 loss, you can never be a favorite because nobody's that big a favorite. But I do believe Autumn will be advantaged versus vampires.
Yeah, so big stuff
Absolutely.
there. Nice.
And unfortunately for Andrew Cuneo, it was losing out for that game. So
no new guitar for him, is that what you're saying?
No new guitar yet.
Okay.
You know, he's still going to be in Mythic Championship 7.
Right,
Just
right.
not straight on to day 2,
Okay.
which Autumn now has the chance to do. So Autumn has to get past Marcio, but as you said, favored, and then get past Carlos twice.
Right, Autumn is nowhere near a favorite to win 3 straight matches, but I do believe Autumn is a favorite in each individual match that they will play.
It's just about the best you can do.
Yep.
Well, we do have a winner interview with Paul Cheon once again with Autumn Burchett.
Hello, I'm Paul Cheon, joined here by the winner of the lower semifinals match, Autumn Burchett. How you doing?
I am doing great. I had a very, very quick match. Very quick one. Exciting.
So, is there any specific cards? Because, you know, there was kind of an addition that the Vampires list did add to their deck. They added, I guess, a Vona. Is that enough to maybe try to help swing the matchup a little bit? Also, Sorin also looks like a card that might be, you know, somewhat effective in the matchup. Are there any draws or combinations of cards that you're kind of concerned about when you play against the Vampire decks?
So the draws I'm most scared of, the draws I've been losing to mainly have been involving Sorin making an Adanto Vanguard really big, like a 2-2 or a 3-3. Because normally Adanto Vanguard's quite a bad card against Mono Red because Chain Whirler, basically. Like, if I cast Chain Whirler and you have a Vanguard, you're going to have to Boros Charm yourself to keep your Vanguard in play, which is just awful. But with Sorin, you can put a counter on your Vanguard, gain that 4 life, so you have a nice life buffer to pay for the Vanguard later. And now that it's a 2-2, you don't get punished by Chain Whirler. So I've been finding the games where my opponent can assemble that combo are pretty problematic for me. And the games where I can keep my opponent off of that combo, or manage to go over the top of it with a Frenzy, I've generally been winning.
Okay. All right. Well, let's talk a little bit about kind of, again, your deck choice for this event. You know, Mono Red has been a deck that's been around, you know, basically forever. And do you feel like the Mono Red deck got some powerful new additions from M20?
Not as such. I really like the card Emperor. It's a card actually a lot of people haven't been playing in their Mono Red lists. I looked through a bunch of red lists like last night, and lots of people were just still on Pyromancers and Wizard's Lightnings. But Aaron Barrich, a very close friend of mine, she's been having a lot of success with Ember Haulers in her red decks. And I've personally adored the card. Against the control decks, it's like a bit worse than Biashino Pyromancer, because you aren't guaranteed that 2 damage. If you tap out and they kill it, you're not going to get the 2 damage that a Pyromancer would guarantee. But against the aggro decks, being able to turn your threat into a removal spell is huge. Because there are games where you just need to keep your opponent's creatures off the board, or where your opponent casts like a Vona, and all your lightning strikes can't kill it. But having an Ember Hauler in play, suddenly that lightning strike in your hand can actually remove this big threat that would normally be really problematic for you to answer in the late game. It's also amazing at blocking. There are a lot of games against aggro decks where you get down your Frenzy, you churn through, and you try and keep up. and just stay alive, because you will win the late game with a Frenzy in play. And in that situation, Ember Hauler is so much better than Pyromancer, because Pyromancer gets to be shoved in front of a blocker and die. Ember Hauler gets to be shoved in front of a blocker, gain you 4 life, and kill that other creature. So, like, instead of just trading with a creature, you're, like, gaining 4 life and trading with a creature, which is huge when you're just trying to cling on to get that advantage with Frenzy.
All right, well, sounds like you did an awesome job metagaming here, and you have another match coming up against Marcio Carvalho. So best of luck in the lower finals match.
Thank you.
All right, we heard why Autumn chose the cards they chose and come in with that mono red. So
I'm kind of convinced on that Ember Hauler argument, by the way.
Yeah?
Yeah,
Ben
that
wasn't
made a
sure
lot of
about that
sense.
card before.
I'm not saying it shouldn't be there. I'm
Yeah.
just saying it's one of the weaker slots in the deck.
Yeah.
It's like it's a space holder, not
Like you said, though,
non-playable.
it's a limited number of cards you get to choose from.
Yeah, I mean, Autumn was explaining that card because it's not an obvious auto inclusion. Like, you don't have to explain why Runaway Steamkin is in your deck or Goblin Chain Whirler is in your deck. You're explaining why Ember Hauler is in your deck.
Yeah.
And little did they know, justifying to you, who had said you weren't sure, but you got to play it and see it in action before you know. Now, because we have 2 players here who are experts in limited as a format, we have a fun little game. So we've got a graphic. Maybe you can tell us, if we look at a pack, what would be your pick here?
I don't understand how this works. We're
Well-
supposed to, like, look at a pack and then pretend.
So there's a thing called Booster Draft. It's really fun.
I'll try to keep up. So what do we like here, B? What's our rare? Shared Summons? That card's kind of
I know.
cool.
Yeah, so Shared Summons is better than it looks, and a lot of cards like that, like the one that searches for 2 Planeswalkers and War the Spark, are better than they look. You can't look at a card like that and draw 2, because lands are almost irrelevant once you have 5, so you're drawing 2 spells, and if you drew 3 cards, on average you draw like a land and 2 spells. So the fact that you're able to search for 2 powerful spells for 5 mana is a lot more powerful than, say, 5 mana draw 2.
And many times your 2 most powerful spells.
Right.
Right.
But that said, it's not what I would take out of this pack.
So what are other options here? Thought Distortion, no. Ancestral Blade's been pretty good. Reduced to Ashes. Evolving Wilds. What else stands out? What are the cards that are in contention?
I mean, for me, this pick is easy. It's just Ancestral Blade. I've been ranting and raving on my stream constantly about how great Ancestral Blade is. I mean, that card is a little different looking of a card. It's a little hard to evaluate. It's a 2-mana 2/2. When you play it on turn 2, you have a 2/2. You have a 1/1 with the equipment already equipped to it, right? So it's not slow. It can attack for 2, 4, 6 damage over the early turns. It can block if you're on the defensive. So it's good when you're on the draw because you get a 2-mana 2/2. You can trade it off for their 2 or 3 drop. It's good when you're on the aggressive because it's a 2-mana 2/2 can pressure the opponent. Then you get this powerful equipment, right? I mean, not powerful, but +1/+1 to all your creatures for the rest of the game
For such a cheap.
for such little cost.
Yes.
It's frequently going to give you attacks where you wouldn't have had attacks otherwise. It's going to deal damage in the air. You can attack with a creature with it and then pay 1 and move it to a blocker. So you're almost effectively getting 2 power and toughness a turn if you're attacking with it and then moving it to a blocker because you're strengthening both your attacker and your blocker. I think Ancestral Blade is a fantastic card, a card I'm very happy to first pick, and it's just a clear choice to me out of this pack.
Now, one of the things, though, about M20 specifically is white has been deemed the least good color by a lot.
And I agree with that.
How much of a factor is that for you? You love Ancestral Blade, but it is putting you towards white here. Is that where you want to be?
Yeah, so I agree white is the worst color, but this is not a format where the worst color is unplayable or even at a big disadvantage. Sure, it's less deep. There should be 1.5 white players out of an 8-person pod, and the deeper colors, like blue, black, and red, there should be 3 players. But if you're opening a card like Ancestral Blade, you should take it, and if Pacifism or Aerial Assault or the other good white cards are getting passed to you, you should take them and you should play white. White can absolutely win. I see deck after deck that goes 7-1 in the arena queues that's white. Just understand that it's one of the weaker colors, and if you're not seeing the good white commons, then you have to move off your blade and move into what you are seeing.
All right, well, now I regret not picking that up in my draft the other day. We have another pack. And what do you like about this pack?
I like the rare.
Yeah. So this pack kind of like the opposite of the last pack. The last pack was really weak, and Ancestral Blade was a clear standout. Now, of course, like you said, Dungeon Geist, best card in the pack. We can't really build up suspense here. You're gonna take Dungeon Geist. But this pack's really good.
Really good pack, yeah.
There's a lot of cards in this pack that I would be happy to take early in a draft. Dungeon Geist, Scampering Scorcher, Silverback Shaman, Shock. Those are all cards that if you had to first pick, it's not embarrassing. And I think a card worth talking about a little bit is Cryptic Caves. Flood out is one of the main ways you lose in Limited, and it's often hard to mitigate. To prevent yourself from losing a flood, you often have to put expensive cards in your deck, and then you have to draw a lot of lands to cast those, and you get run over, you miss spots in your curve. Cryptic Caves replaces a land in your deck. So if you have an average 2-color deck, the most common land count you're going to play is 17, and you can play 8 of each source and Cryptic Caves, and now it's really like you're a 16 land deck in terms of flood out. Because if you have less than 5 lands, you're not flooded. You're not worried about sacking your land, right? But if you draw 5+ lands, you can cash Cryptic Caves in and possibly find more spells. I think it very quietly produces a lot of value and goes a long way towards winning games.
Yeah, the hard part with Cryptic Caves is where do you take it, right? Because it didn't make your list of those top 4 cards in the pack, and I don't think it would for me either. It needs to fit in specifically a 2-color deck and not one that's heavily one color or the other. Where do you pick it up?
Yeah, it's just underneath those for me. It's in that, let's call it 3rd to 6th pick range, where you're happy to have it in your deck. It's creating positive value, but it's not really a first pick card.
Right. It's not quite on that level.
But for the most part, would you say if there is a rare card in there, then that's the one you grab?
Well, the rares vary a lot. Some of the rares are really, really good, and some are not really playable in Limited.
If there's that rare.
Yeah. Dungeon Geist is clearly a constructed power level card. It's a 4-mana 3/3 flyer that kills your opponent's best creature.
Yep.
So, I mean, that's...
Well.
Yeah, that's
well,
just
it's on the battlefield.
Yeah, that's just a really good card. A card you almost always are going to first pick. The only uncommons in the set I'd take over is probably Risen Reef. I think the second best uncommon in the set is Chandra, and I don't think I would take Chandra over Dungeon Geist. But Risen Reef is probably so that's a rare that's better than every uncommon except Risen Reef, which is a broken uncommon.
Which is a mythic uncommon.
Yeah, which is a fully broken uncommon.
Yeah.
Excellent. All right, now we do want to tell you one more time where you can find all of the matches that happened in the round robin part of this tournament. So if you go to magic.gg, then you can check out the new features on the Magic Esports site, full rosters and results from every match of the core split today. Even all the games that we're not showing you, you can go watch them yourself. Of course, you won't have these 2 lovely gentlemen casting you through it, but you know, you can do the casting from home. Each match has a VOD, dive into what your favorite players did during this core split. And of course, you can check that all out at magic.gg, my favorite country.
Which country is that?
It's her. She's starting.
The land of good games.
She hasn't got the word out yet. The branding around her new country called GG or Good
We
Games.
need the territory first. If anybody has an island for sale.
This was a top-down country. She had the idea first. Now she's shopping around for the
I'm not sure what I missed, but I like good games. I'll move to the country of good games.
Yeah.
All right, well, if you like watching some great matches and GGs, then make sure you stay tuned after this break.